right, my little math friends, we are on the next part of Chapter 6. It is 6.3, and we're going to be starting on page 167. And this section, we're going to be comparing different types of functions. Like sometimes we'll have a table, sometimes a graph, sometimes an equation and a table. So we're going to be comparing one to the other to kind of see which one would be the better deal, or which one offers the best service, best price, something like that. All right, so we're taking a look at page 167. They worked out an example for us. We're just going to look at it quickly because I want to show you what they did, because we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to show you a shortcut, but sometimes you have to do what they did, like in example number 1. Okay, so we're going to take a look at it. So here we have Josh and Maggie, and they buy MP3 files from different music services. Okay, so they buy them from different places, and Josh's service costs this amount. Okay, it's represented by this linear equation, and he is paying 50 cents for each song plus $10. Okay, that's what his monthly cost is. All right, and Maggie, her cost is represented by this table. Okay, we don't have an equation for Maggie, we just have this table. All right, now something I want to show you, a side note here. Take a look at this iPod. All right, I haven't seen an iPod like that since like 2005. I mean, that thing is old school. All right, I just wanted to point that out. I thought that was kind of interesting. So, getting back to this math stuff. So, what they did is they had to make an equation for Maggie's monthly cost. Okay, kind of like this one for Josh. They made one for Maggie. So what they did is they labeled this one set number 1 and this one set number 2. And then they went through and used that equation that you guys all liked so very much in chapter 5, m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, so they used that equation, they plugged in these numbers where they went. They got 0.99, okay, that was their slope. So they took 0.99, they plugged it in for m, okay, kind of like we did all in chapter 5. Okay, they plugged that in for m, and then they took one of these pairs, they took 5 and they took 4.95 and they plugged it in for x and y. 5 went here, 4.95 went there for y. Okay, they did the math and they found out the y-intercept is 0. Okay, so their final equation came out to this. Alright, so there's Maggie's equation. Right there, that's Maggie's equation. And up above we have Josh's equation, which is right here. Okay, so they got the two equations. And their question, they asked which price is cheaper when you buy 30 songs. Okay, so they're trying to answer this question. So they took 30 songs and they plugged it in for x for Josh's equation, and they plugged it in for x on Maggie's equation. They did the math, and they found out that Josh's plan is cheaper because it only costs $25, and Maggie's plan costs her $29.70. Okay, so that's one way to do it. Sometimes you have to go through all those steps and find the equation. Okay, we're going to do a shortcut for the next one. All right, but I want to show you this because some of your problems you might have to do it this way. Okay, so let's take a look at page 168, and we're going to do one of our own problems. Okay, this one up here at the top. And in this problem, we have Quentin, and he buys books from a bookstore, or he buys them online. Okay, so buying, and he has two different prices for what he pays for online or at a bookstore. So here's the equation. This tells him how much it costs to buy them online. $6.95 per book plus $1.50. Okay, that's what he has to pay online. And if he buys it at the bookstore, if he goes down the street and buys it at the store, his cost is shown in this table. Okay, we don't have an equation, kind of like they did in example 1 on the other page. They had a table and they had an equation, and they're trying to figure out which one is the better deal. Okay, so they're asking us if Quentin buys 6 books, which store is the cheapest? Okay, so instead of going through the steps they did in example 1, we're going to shortcut it a little bit. So I hope you guys are happy about that, because we have a pattern here. These books are going up by 1 every single time in this table, and our cost is going up by how much you think it's going up by? Every single time it's going up by the same amount, $7.50. Okay, so we have a pattern here. It's a nice pattern. So we can say we're trying to buy 6 books. So let's say we buy 1 more book. Okay, we're buying 6 books, and we're going to go up another $7.50. So that's going to cost Quentin $45 at the bookstore. All right? So that one was pretty simple. So now let's take 6 books and let's plug it in for X in this equation to figure out how much it would be online. So Y equals $6.95 times 6 books plus $1.50. Okay, so if we do the math on that, we come up with a cost of $43, okay, not 42, $43.20. Okay, so this is the price online, that's the price at the bookstore, so Quentin's going to get a better deal if he buys it online. Okay, that's a little bit shorter process than doing it in example 1, but sometimes you have to do it like they did in example 1. Okay, so look for a pattern, maybe see if you can find some of those shortcuts on your homework. All right, a couple more problem types. Let's check out this explore activity. And this time we're comparing a table and a graph. Okay, so we don't have an equation. We have a table and we have a graph. So we're trying to figure out, we're going to answer some questions down here. And we have different typing speeds. We have Morgan that can type this amount, shown in the table, this fast. And Brian can type this amount, this fast, shown in the graph. Okay, so we're going to compare these two. The first thing we want to find is Morgan's unit rate. And unit rate, guys, that's the same as slope. Okay, we've kind of talked about that before, but it's been a while. That's the same as slope. So we want to find the slope of Morgan's typing, what that slope would be. Okay, so we have to use that formula like they did in example 1. So we're going to label this set number 1. We'll label this one set number 2. And here's our formula. M equals Y2. My Y2 is 60. Minus Y1, 30. Over X2, which is 4, minus X1, which is 2. Okay, we do the math for this, and we get 30 over 2. and that would come out to 15 over 1. All right, and that's my slope. So if I was going to graph this, I would go up 15 and over 1. Okay, so there's our unit rate for Morgan. So that tells us that Morgan can type 15 words per minute. Okay, that's Morgan's typing speed, 15 words per minute. Okay, now we want to find what Brian's unit rate is, what his slope is. Okay, so let's check out the graph, and we need to find ourselves 2 points, and we'll make it kind of easy on ourselves. We'll just pick 0, 0 as our first point, and we'll go with, well, let's just go with this one. We'll go this point right here as our second one. Okay, so to go from 0 to this point, our rise is 20, 40. Okay, 40 is our rise. And our run from 0 to 2 is 2. We can simplify that to 20 over 1, and that's our slope for Brian. So that tells us Brian can type 20 words per minute. Okay, so looking at that, we have 15 words per minute or 20 words per minute. Brian is definitely the fastest typer compared to Morgan. So which one can type more correct words? We're going to say Brian. Okay. For number 2, we have Katie, and she types 17 words per minute. Okay, we're not going to spend time on this one, but what you would do with this is our slope, 17 over 1. Okay, and we could graph that. We could go up 17 over 1, and we could show where this would be, and then we can compare that to Brian and Morgan's speed. But we're going to keep going because I don't want to run out of time on this. So let's head on to page 169. We're just going to skip number 2. Okay, and we have one more situation to compare. This time we have a description and we have a graph. Okay, so we're going to compare these two situations. Alright, so Jamal wants to buy a new game system that costs $200. He doesn't have enough money right away, so he wants to put it on a layaway plan where he can make some payments. So he has one store, Store A, that offers this type of layaway plan, okay, shown on the graph, and he has Store B, and their type of layaway plan is described right here. Alright, so we're going to compare the two to kind of figure out which one's the better deal, which one will let Jamal get his game system faster. Looking at this one, he would get his game system after he makes all these payments after 10 weeks. Okay, so we can already see that. So we're going to check out what this one would come out to be, Store B. So the first thing we're asked is to write an equation in slope-intercept form for Store A's layaway plan. Okay, so we're going to write that equation y equals mx plus b. So I'm going to start with y equals. And looking at this graph, we can find the y-intercept. That's the easiest one to spot. And our y-intercept is right there. It is at 100. So let's see. We don't know what the slope is yet, so I'm going to leave this blank. I'm going to put an x there. And my y-intercept is plus 100. Okay, because it's a positive 100, so we know it's going to be plus 100. Now my slope, let's figure this out. Just by looking at this line, it's going downwards. So that means it is a negative slope. So I can put a minus sign there because I know it's going to be negative. And now we're just going to pick 2 points on this graph so we can figure out what our slope is. So let's just pick 2 easy points. Let's go with this one right here and this one right here. Okay, these will be our 2 points. So right here I am at 100, and to get to this point I have to go down to 80. So 100 minus 80, that'll get me 20, over, going from 0 to 2, my run is 2. All right, so that would simplify down to 10 over 1, and that would be my slope. So my slope is negative 10. Okay, so there is our plan for store A. Now let's take a look at store B, and let's write an equation for that one so that we can compare the two and see what they look like. Store B requires an initial payment of $60. Okay, this word initial is important, class. Initial means your starting point, and your starting point is your y-intercept. Wherever you have a number that kind of sounds like your starting point, that's going to be your y-intercept. So we can start building this already. Y equals, we don't know what x is yet, we'll leave that blank. We don't know what the slope is, so let's just put in x. Okay, plus and we are starting at, let's see, we have an initial payment of 60. Okay, now we got to think about this for a second because this game system cost $200. Okay, and we're making an initial payment of $60. All right, our y-axis, if we're looking at this graph, this y-axis shows the balance owed. Okay, so if we started with $200, we make an initial payment of $60. Okay, our y-intercept isn't $60 because we don't owe $60. We owe $140. Okay, $60 minus 200 gives us 140. So that's how much we owe starting off with. Okay, so it is going to be $140. Okay, that's our starting point. All right, I know it's a little backwards. It's like you want to put this $60 in there. Okay, but we got to take a look at this graph because it's the balance owed. So $140. Okay, so here's my slope. Payments of $20, weekly payments. Okay, so every week you're making a payment of $20. So that's going to be 20x, and it's still going to be negative because as we're making payments, our balance is getting less and less. So just like this graph, store B, it's also going to go down. Okay, so there's our 2 equations. And part C says to put the graph of plan B, show the line of plan B on the graph. Okay, so we're going to do that so that way we can kind of get a comparison. We'll see what they look like. Our y-intercept is 140. That's my starting point. Okay, and then I'm just going to follow my slope. I am going down 20 over 1. Okay, down 20 over 1. So down 20 over 1. Down 20 over 1. Down 20 over 1. Okay, these lines are going to cross here. Down 20 over 1. Okay, they share this same exact point. Down 20 over 1. Down 20 over 1. And our last point would be right there. Okay, so plan B or store B looks like this. and store A is still that line. All right, now they have some questions down here, and we're kind of running out of time because it's this lesson is taking a while. But basically, these questions ask, which plan would allow Jamal to get his game system faster? Okay, which one would let him pay it off the fastest? All right, and that would be store B, because this line is steeper, which means that he would get his system paid off. He would owe a zero balance, all the way down to zero, in 7 weeks, and he would get his system. All right, store A takes a little longer, 10 weeks. Okay, because you're only paying $10 a week with store A, you're paying $20 a week with store B. Okay, so on your homework you'll have some questions like that. They're going to ask you, which one's shorter, which one do you pay more, different things like that. All right, that's all the time we got for this. You guys can go ahead and get started on your classwork and your homework for 6.3, and I will see you tomorrow, and we'll talk about 6.4.